you seen yarn in the store that looks like this? A whole bunch of little pom-poms on a string, and you're wondering, how the heck do I even knit with that? It's easier than you think. So this is a pom-pom yarn. This is a pom-pom yarn that we carry. It's called Sweetie. It's from Sara. Big, floofy, squishy, and it makes great baby blankets. I also brought along our yarn valet yarn dispenser, which is 2 parts. This sits on the base here and spins nice and easy so that you can, when you're working with this yarn, I'm just going to pull the label off. This is one of those yarns that you don't want to try and find the inside and pull it out, because those pom-poms are going to catch on each other and they're going to knot. What you want to do is find the outside, but then you don't want it rolling around while you're working on it, so you just pop it on your yarn valet, and then as you work, it spins. It's so nice. I love it. Okay, so the secret to working with a yarn like this is to not try and cast on with it. You actually want to cast on with a different yarn. So I just have a little ball of scrap sock yarn here, and I'm going to find the end of, because the end does exist, I promise, somewhere in here. You can use any old yarn. It really doesn't matter what yarn you use. You just want to make sure that it sort of blends in. And I found that using like a sock weight yarn, it helps it to really disappear into the work. And then whatever cast on you want to use. So I'm just going to use a long tail cast on. If you need help with a long tail cast on, we do have a stitch support for that, which you can click on the link above and watch. And I'm going to cast on 10 stitches. 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm casting on fairly loosely. 8, 9, 10. And the secret is that you want to have a number divisible by 2, because the space between each of these pom-poms, you're going to get 2 stitches out of that. And then once you've cast on your stitches, you can go ahead and break that yarn that you used for the cast on. See ya, because that's all you need. So I've got 10 stitches cast on, easy peasy. Now I'm going to go into that first stitch, and I like to go 2 pom-poms in, and I'm just going to fold that over. See how I'm just making a loop between those 2 pom-poms? I'm going to fold that over for the first stitch. I'm going to go into the second stitch, and then I'm going to pull this so that first pom-pom snugs up underneath the first stitch, and then you can see I have that extra strand there. That's my second stitch. Then when I go to my third stitch, when I loop that around, see how the pom-pom catches underneath? That's what you want it to do. And off, and then the second stitch with the remainder of that string between the pom-poms. And so you're just going to continue that way across. There's the second one. That's one. There's your second one. There's one. There's your second one. That's your first row done. Then when you move on to the second row, this pom-pom here, when you make that first stitch, that little pom-pom is just going to hang out on the edge. And then there's your second stitch. And that pom-pom hangs out underneath. And there's your second stitch. And you just keep going this way, all the way across. And don't worry if it feels like one of those pom-poms has gotten a little too close. See how it looks like that pom-pom rolled up onto my needle? You just push it back a little bit. And there's that last stitch. And it's really cute. I'm going to do one more row and then show you a piece where there's a few more rows done so you can see what the fabric really looks like. And this is garter stitch. It's knit every row. Nice and easy. Oh, I knit with my tail. So I'm just going to take that out. Don't knit with your tail, kids. It's not that big a deal if you do. All right. It's actually pretty fun to knit with this because it's so squishy and soft. It doesn't, my hands don't super like it the way that I usually knit. It really wants me to go back to throwing. So you may have to change how you hold your yarn a little bit to work with this yarn. All right, so that's the end of my third row of stitches. Let me show you what that looks like. And you'll see, get all these little tails out of here, that they start to line up in rows. And I actually have a piece here I can show you. It's a little bit more finished. See how these pom-poms, they sit sideways in the fabric and they line up into nice columns, and it's the same on both sides. And so I mentioned that it's garter stitch. You knit every row. Well, why can't I knit stockinette stitch? You can, but this fabric is so dense with these pom-poms that if you knit it in stockinette, where you knit a row and then you purl a row, it curls in on itself. So if I show you, this is actually the knit side here. And you can see the columns with those two stitches and the pom-poms in between. And if I let go of it, it really curls in on itself. So go ahead and knit it garter, because then you end up with the pom-poms on both sides, and it's so squishy and soft. And it's such an easy baby blanket. Cast on as many stitches as you need to get the width that you need, as long as that number is divisible by 2, and then just keep knitting every row until you get to the end. The only other thing I want to recommend when you're ready to bind off, actually I bring this back in and show you. When you're ready to bind off, see how this piece angles in? It's a little bit of a trapezoid. That's because I bound off with the pom-pom yarn. And when you do that, when you have to do your bind off stitch, it really pulls those stitches in too tight, and you can't really bind off loosely because the pom-poms get stuck in there. So when you're ready to bind off, I recommend going back to that scrap yarn that you started with and knitting your bind off row with that yarn, because you'll be able to do it loosely. So just fold it over into a loop to catch that first stitch. And I'm just going to work with the working yarn and the tail. And then make sure that you bind off nice and loose. All the way across. I'm going to do one more stitch with that tail, then I can drop it. Nice and loose all the way across. See, you're able to do it loosely with this scrap yarn. When doing it with the pom-poms, you really can't, because the pom-poms, because there's only so much space between each of the pom-poms that you can't really do it loosely. And then you end up with a bind off edge or a cast off edge that is really much shorter width-wise than what you were making. This yarn also makes great scarves. Really anything that you want to make super squishy and cuddly. Great for kids, 100% washable. It's a polyester blend, and it's just so fun. I'm going to break that yarn, then I can pull it through that last stitch. And look at that. Nice and loosey-goosey, which is much better than that really tight trapezoid that we got there. This one, the top matches the bottom, so it's nice and even. So pick up a big, squishy, soft skein of the Sweetie from Sirdar and make up a couple of scarves or a couple of blankets. Happy knitting!